So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor. All kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So they you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift and the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Thom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which it's kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic, on ADHD from back in the 90s, about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter in a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then how does that apply to modern day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. So this is essentially a self-help book, Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents. But it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time, and we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeachments and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the fox, or both window clings, or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here. I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. This whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, it's an absolutely extraordinary happy Wednesday. Thom Hartmann here with you. The transcript is out, and there are 2 very conspicuous deletions in it, 2 places where there are redactions from this transcript. And I'm just astonished that nobody in the media is talking about it. We'll be digging into that a little later on in the program, in our second and third hour. Naomi Klein will be with us in our third hour, by the way. She's on book tour for her new book, On Fire. But starting off our program, it is Congressman Mark Pocan. He is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He represents the 2nd District of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives. Pocan.house.gov is his website. His Twitter handle is Rep Mark Pocan. It's Middays with Mark. Our telephone number, if you have questions for Congressman Pocan, 202-808-9925. And, lines are open. Congressman Pocan, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
So we've already got people calling in to get you on, so we'll get right to that right away.
Sure.
But I'm just curious, your take on everything that's going on right now with regard
to... quiet week here in Washington. This stands out in that the president has done many things that I think many of us agree are impeachable offenses. He's violated his oath on multiple occasions, but never as flagrant as outwardly as this one, where he, on the Mueller report, he's trying to hide the fact that he's covering up what he did. Here, he has said, yes, I told them to go after a political opponent's son and find some evidence. Yes, I withheld money to the country before I made the phone call. And he's done all the work for us because we don't have to have, like with the Mueller report, witnesses to come in to give us a better picture of what happened. Here, he has said it. And I think that's why you're finding the real surge from Congress to deal with this and deal with this promptly and properly as we need to according to our Constitution. So it stands out in its brazenness and its criminality, and I think that's why you're seeing the action that's happened in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I would like to, if I may point out to you, there's 2 redactions in this. It's not really a transcript. It's only a couple thousand words. This was a 30-minute phone conversation. This is maybe 5 minutes of it, but or maybe 10. But one, he says, I would like you to do us a favor. This is right after Zelensky says, we'd like your aid. And Trump says, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country's been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I'd like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say crowd strike, and then there's an ellipsis, 3 dots, which indicates that something has been deleted there. And we don't know where that went. And then there's another ellipsis in the next sentence. It says, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ... So that's a second deletion. Actually, I guess there's 3 deletions. And then the third one is on the 3rd page. He says, Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, ... In other words, there's 3 redactions in here. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. One, it's not an actual verbatim transcription, so there's a lot that still could be lacking there. 2, it's not the whistleblower report, which is what we really want, because we want to see the full extension. Don't forget, I think it's been reported that up to 8 times he might have pressed the head of the Ukraine. We need to get all that information. We are going to have to act based on this partial information, but really it's the whistleblower report that we need to get to really get the full breadth of what he did.
Yeah, amen. Okay, let's pick up some phone calls here.
Sure.
Kevin in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you for taking my call, Congressman and Tom, and I appreciate all of your work there. Do you know of a way where we could force the recusal of Attorney General William Barr, known as Cover-Up Barr, from this investigation? Because it already seems that news snippets are saying, oh, the Attorney General has determined that this doesn't meet the bar of investigation.
Right. This is the guy that William Safire referred to as Cover-Up General Barr back in 1992.
Right. I think that's what the next step is. So I believe the House Intelligence Committee will be taking this part up because of the nature of it. And if it comes out through here that Barr was directly involved in some way, that could be a place for recusal. There's a lot that still could. All you really have in the last 24 hours is Nancy Pelosi saying, we're going at it, and then now getting the release of not exactly a transcript, but close to a transcript of the conversation. And we don't have the whistleblower report, and we haven't started what process where you'd bring in then various people who are mentioned in here. So I think you're going to have a lot of places, Kevin, where this can happen. But in this 24-hour period, I don't know if anyone can give you an honest assessment because we haven't done the actual the investigation based on that whistleblower report.
David in Greenfield, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you for taking my call. I was curious about how the powers of inherent contempt work, and I was wondering, they basically don't show up to testify on a subpoena. Then the chairman issues a arrest warrant, and then the sergeant at arms and the Capitol Hill police go out and arrest the individual and put him in Capitol Hill jail?
So
yeah, you're taking quite a few leaps, David. So we have had this conversation as members of Congress. In other words, what are some of the other steps that can happen from fines to all the way up to, I guess, the Capitol jail, which we never knew until the last few months. At least I didn't know there was one. But some of that was needing to get, quite honestly, the Speaker to be fully on board with what was happening, and now she's clearly fully on board. And I think that whether it be Mr. Nadler in Judiciary or Mr. Schiff in Intelligence or some of the other committees that have some jurisdiction now know they've got every, I think, ability and tool to go more aggressively. I think what's really the story should be how outlandish it is that this president has told people not to go and be witnesses. He proclaims his innocence, but then he's blocking people from coming and talking. Again, in Wisconsin, that's called the smell test. It doesn't pass it. But now I think the committee chairs will have more resources to put in place. And don't forget, we're going to the courts to get those extra powers out of Article 1. And that is going to be important for some of the work that Jerry Nadler is doing. This investigation, a little bit separate issue, but they're going all at it starting very soon.
Michelle in Los Angeles, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you very much to both of you. I wanted to ask you about Egypt and the current protests that are going on and Trump's favorite dictator, Sisi, who is still in New York. Friday, there's another planned protest. They've arrested 1,500 people, 100,000 political prisoners since the coup in 2013, and we still give them $1.8 billion in military aid by taxpayers every year.
And I'm sorry, Michelle, what was the specific question?
Why are we continuing to do that? And is Congress going to speak out since you're holding the purse strings and about Sisi and his continued oppression?
Gotcha. Well, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of spots, right? We just had a hearing, and I'm asking why. We just pulled out our assistance in the West Bank and Gaza, and we're getting reports. In fact, there's a UN report that said, I forgot the exact terminology, but basically it could be unlivable by next year in Gaza, and there's all kinds of areas that we're looking at. In this particular place, I mean, clearly, as you know, this president loves autocrats, and this is one of his allies, I guess, in that sense. But I couldn't tell you specifically with where the president is in this in Congress. We have a number of committees that look at this on the funding side. We right now are in our NDAA reauthorization process at conference committee. But I guess, Michelle, I don't have a more specific answer as far as directly related to the president on this. Do you,
if I can just ask a follow-up on that, do you know if the military aid to Egypt is, I recall, after the Camp David agreements with Jimmy Carter, that's when I thought it went up to like $3 billion each for Egypt and Israel, our foreign aid for those two countries, and that it was tied to their working out this peace agreement between these two countries. A, is my memory right? And B, if it is, to what extent is continuing aid to either country contingent on some echo from Camp David, or is that way back in the past and now it's just something we negotiate every year?
Yeah, so the first part, I wasn't here then, so I can't tell you if that was part of what was discussed at the time. I can tell you right now, we have very little attached to this aid whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem. I mean, right now, specifically, I think many of us are anxious to see what kind of reorganized government Israel is going to have. But under Mr. Netanyahu, it is devolving on a very rapid basis to a point that many of us were starting to question the aid, given his actions and his comments, and what it could mean in that region for instability. I had someone, Tom, a professor from Gaza, in my office last week, and said that recently one of the things they're finding are suicide bombings against the Hamas police, because people are being further radicalized beyond Hamas because of the conditions that are existing in Gaza. That's why today I was questioning the USAID representative specifically on, are they even monitoring conditions right there? We pulled our assistance. 1.1 million people are on food assistance. 95 to 100% of the water is undrinkable. What are we doing in a situation like that, and yet we're still providing the assistance without any strings attached?
Yeah, that's remarkable. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, represents the state of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives. Our telephone number, 202-808-9925. I'm guessing you already know that because every line is full. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Oh, and you can tweet him at Rep Mark Pocan, REPMARKPOCAN. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Helen in Fairmont, West Virginia. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Helen.
Hey, Helen. You're on the air.
Okay, I wanted to ask a question. What do you think the Republicans' motive was yesterday in passing that non-binding resolution? I don't look for it to be anything good because they seem to be saying the same old things. Like I saw Congressman Gates on TV from DEFUNKIAH Springs, Florida this morning, doing the same old spin tactic. And I'd like to change one letter in that town because that's what he's doing to his constituents.
Yeah, Helen, I can tell you that Republicans, what they're doing is watching their back ends, and that's about it. I mean, the president already said he was going to release the transcript, so they took a vote essentially that said release the transcript, and I don't think they were saying a whole lot more than the obvious. I think the next steps are going to be what happens as we do this process. They're already saying in the Senate they'll stop any impeachment. How can you say that without having some of the additional information? We already have a president admitting he broke the law and that he withheld funds as he broke the law, which is pretty rare to get someone to give you all that information up front. And yet they're still, I think, going to ultimately stand up. The question is, who in the Republican Party will stand up for the country over their party? And that's what I think we're going to see in the next several weeks.
Charles in Laguna Woods, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Morning, Congressman Tom. Climate emergency. I'll be quick because my answer can be yes or no. The Congress, each side has a declaration of climate emergency. Senate, S-Con-Res 22, has 6 co-sponsors. Listeners, you got to do something about that. Congressman, H-Con-Res 52, are you a co-sponsor?
I don't know offhand. You can look and find on the on our site or whatever site is on the bills. I'm a strong supporter of the Green New Deal, and I think that that's where we're trying to show the priority that we need to deal with this for the next 10 years. There's a lot of different bills out there. Some people love a carbon tax bill. I personally support carbon tax, but I don't like a bill that doesn't allow you to do any other protections during that time. I think there's a lot of concerns on different bills that are out there, but I am a part of our climate change caucus and have been since I've been in Congress, fighting hard for us to try to address this issue. I'm hoping that given what's happening globally, this may be the moment for us to take action, real action, instead of just lip service.
Congressman, we just have 30 seconds to the break.
Yeah.
Are there poison pill bills out there also, ones that purport to be, helpful with regard to climate change, but in fact are not?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of bills that have good names, and probably the various oil and gas and other industries have put them out there. I mean, there's one that's a lot of people talk about, and again, I support a carbon tax. I think that actually can be a good way to try to address the environment. What I don't support is a bill that says you can't do anything else in the meantime while you're waiting to see if it works, because again, we don't have time to do that.
Yeah, so we need an all-of-the-above approach.
Absolutely, which is why the idea of a Green New Deal is so important.
Yeah, there you go. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. We'll be right back with your calls for him at 202-808-9925. We'll be right back. Congressman Mark Pocan is on the line with us, taking your calls. Our telephone number, 202-808-9925. And Mike in Barney Lake, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan. Mike?
Yes.
You're on the air.
Oh, thank you. Congressman, I love your response earlier when you said in the next few weeks we're going to hopefully see some Republicans take a stand for the country over party. But it was really concerning this morning watching C-SPAN with Cornyn and McCarthy both going out and consistently calling this a transcript and every word spoken. What is the plan to try to make sure we stay focused on the narrative over the GOP spin?
Yeah, so the GOP is going to be spinning like crazy on this, but the narrative, I think, is very simple on this one. The president admitted he did it. He admitted he withheld funds days prior to this call. And once we see that whistleblower report, I think you're going to see a little bit more of how many times he actually pushed this issue. you don't normally get that, right? That's what we were fighting for with the Mueller report, is to get witnesses to come in, because Donald Trump said he didn't do things that Mr. Mueller clearly said he did, and we needed to confirm that. In this case, he's already gone out there and said he did everything, so now they've got to spin his confession, so to speak. I think that puts us in a very good spot, and we just need to keep our focus on that. I think it's easy to explain. You can do it in 1 or 2 sentences as opposed to trying to explain the Mueller report, and I think that is why they are out there lying and saying whatever they need to. But at some point, they're going to realize it's working against them, and I'm sure they will throw whoever they need to under the bus along the way. But I feel very confident looking at everything on this that we are in a very different position, I think, than we've been on the Mueller report, where we needed witnesses to have collaboration. In this case, the smoking gun is Donald Trump.
Paul in Taos, New Mexico. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Thank you, Congressman. Thanks for being here, and I want to congratulate Nancy Pelosi for finally making a move. What concerns me is the redactions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Congress or any committee in Congress still hasn't seen the unredacted Mueller report. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think no committee in Congress has seen the unredacted Mueller report. And I think what's important for us is they want us to think this is everything, right? What's everything is the whistleblower report. That's what we want to see, and we should really keep the focus. The Republicans will try to spin and put a little misdirection out there. Their misdirection will be, this is all it says, even though it says he asked them to get information on Biden. But I think what you're going to find in that whistleblower report, you're going to see the extent of it and more information that will be even more damning that continues to build on the president's confession.
And let's again point out, at the 3 points in this so-called transcript, these notes from this phone conversation, there are 3 places where it gets really dangerous for Trump, where he's talking about CrowdStrike, which was the company that put together the initial dossier that Trump is all flipped out about, where he references Ukrainian oligarchs, and where he talks about Joe Biden bragging that he stopped prosecution. Every single one of those 3 spots has, we have no idea how much has been deleted, but there are ellipses in those 3 places. And, look it up. An ellipsis, it means something here is missing. Something is redacted.
And Tom, the key words right here, it says caution. This is on the unclassified report that's been put out. A memorandum of a telephone conversation, telecon, is not a verbatim transcript of a discussion. And It goes to explain what that is. So, again, I think everyone should be wanting the whistleblower's report. And we need to keep our focus, I think, really on that.
There you go. Pat in Seattle, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, both of you, for all your hard work. My question is, did I hear, I thought it was you, Thom Hartmann, a couple of days ago, say that there were actually 8 phone calls between Trump and the Ukrainian leader, and so now we're getting 1 phone call redacted, but that there were actually several more phone calls.
What the media is reporting, Pat, is that there were 8 areas of concern that the whistleblower raised. We don't know what that means beyond that. Congressman Pocan, you want to comment on that? We just have a few seconds before we're going to hit a break.
Yeah, and again, that goes to why the you notice the president did say, I'll release the whistleblower report. Right. He's releasing this sort of transcript, and that's why we need the report.
Yeah, amen. Congressman Mark Pocan, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, representing the state of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives, taking your calls for the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment. You can check out his website at pocan.house.gov, P-O-C-A-N. You can tweet him, at Rep. Mark Pocan, as in Representative, R-E-P-M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program. Back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment. Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor. All kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool, and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift and the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Thom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which it's kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic, on ADHD from back in the 90s, about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter in a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then how does that apply to modern day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. So this is essentially a self-help book, Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents, but it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time. And we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeachments and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the fox, or both window clings, or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here. I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. Because this whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour. By the way, Congressman Pocan, we may be on the receiving end of a concerted GOP effort to change the narrative. Just a heads up. Louise has not been putting any of them on the air, but we've been getting a number of calls from people who've never called into the program before. Our call screen software, tracks, it keeps a database of the caller, where they called from, their phone number, all that kind of stuff, who all are saying essentially the same thing. Why aren't you talking about how corrupt Joe Biden and his son are? And I mean, they're really trying to get on the radio, and they're really trying to change the narrative here. And I just wanted to flag that for you. Like I said, it's not someplace I'm going to go. But anyway, if you want to comment on that, or I'll just pick up the next phone call here. Yeah,
I mean, they know they're in trouble. Like I said, when the smoking gun is the actual person you're investigating himself because he's confessed to it and confessed to withholding funding prior to it and doing all this a day after the Mueller report, I mean, this is a unique situation, and if I were them, I would be panicking desperately as well. Yeah. It sounds, Louise said, it sounds like some of them are even, reading off a script. So, anyhow, Nick in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Fantastic. Thank you both so very much. Benedict Donald is a delusional narcissist that cares nothing for God and country, and he will not admit to fault, being wrong about anything, and refuses to be a loser. And he's, from my perspective, he's been setting up all kinds of plausible scenarios for starting a war or creating some sort of conflict that he can cooperate, which under these circumstances would trigger a significant domestic unrest. So my question is, what is Congress doing, and presumably in cooperation with the military, to prevent Benedict Donald from starting a war, to prevent himself from being impeached, or for us to have normal elections and or being imprisoned after his removal from office? Thank you.
Yeah, Nick, I think you're getting a little bit down the speculation, road, and I think there are plenty of safeguards we have within the system. If he tries to do something, I understand why you would think that, right? Because I think many of us think he's going to do something to be a big distraction. We already worry about what he's doing with Iran right now. So we've got plenty of people who are watching these issues very closely. And I think Congress will act very swiftly if he tries to do anything. And I honestly believe there are even some people in the administration and other places that are putting country above loyalty to Donald Trump that will have some safeguards put in place. So there are plenty of points for us to act should something happen, but at this point we're moving ahead very aggressively and making sure that we get that full report from the whistleblower.
Brian in Los Angeles, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hey, Congressman. Hey, Tom. This is my first time calling. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm inquiring about this transcript that he's so quickly and readily to reveal to the public, and his force has been refusing it. So it's kind of funny that he's quick to send this out. I think you mentioned it before that he's quick to send this one document out, but how many transcripts are there?
Right, and what's missing from this one? Yeah, is that your question, Brian? A rhetorical question? Okay, cool. Thank you. Congressman?
Yeah, and Brian, that's why I think every time someone tells you that this says nothing, first of all, that's not at all true. It actually confirms that he asked them to investigate a political opponent, and we know that was days after he withheld their funding that Congress approved. So, I mean, we've got those smoking guns, but the real issue is we want the whistleblower report, because there's supposedly multiple things that made that whistleblower come to public. We need to see what all that is, especially given what we've read in the Mueller report. We know this guy doesn't just do something once and never try again, and that's part of what I think we're going to see in that whistleblower report. So let's just keep focused on that. What they gave us already is very, very powerful. That's why you've had a lot of people, a lot of members come saying they supported impeachment just in the last 48, 72 hours. I think we will get that report. Adam Schiff's committee will get that report, and we'll have more information to share.
Sue in San Francisco, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, I guess I'm confused. Why is the whistleblower report with the president? Why did it not just go to Congress? Isn't that the huge issue?
Yeah, it has to be released to the Intelligence Committee, which I think it will be. So it's not like the president has the direct ability on this, but we do have to get that report. And once we have that report, you'll see the totality of this. But I think, what Donald Trump is very good at is, in as many characters as you can do in Twitter lying, which he does quite often. In this case, he's trying to make it look like he's released everything there is, and not only is it not complete, is it's not a transcript, but also it's not what we're actually asking for, which we need released is the whistleblower report, but there's some permissions that have to happen before it gets to the committee, and that's what the committee is going to work on to get.
Richard in Antioch, Illinois, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call. My question is, a little while back in Illinois, we went through this pretty much, and with Governor Blagojevich, and he's spending 14 years in prison for supposedly an ask, which was more or less an implication and not even an ask, and how he can possibly get away with this.
Yeah, Richard, I'll tell you again, the reason you saw this huge rush to call for impeachment was because people are seeing, one, he outright admitted that he broke the law, and that we know days prior he withheld the funding. Like, it all comes together in a very understandable way, where the Mueller report, while I think it was a very thorough report and pointed out a number of instances where he obstructed, which meant he broke the law, you needed additional witnesses for collaboration because you didn't have the person himself saying, I did it. In this case, Donald Trump, for whatever reason, outright admitted that he did it. And we're a lot farther being able to specifically look at what he did in this case by breaking the law. So I think people should be heartened by the fact that we're in a position to deal with this. Once we get that whistleblower report, we're going to have even more information. And I don't care how much Republican spin they put out there. It's impossible to try to unspin a confession. And they're going to try to figure out lots of different strategies. I think a lot of spaghetti will be thrown against the wall trying to explain why he's innocent. But the best evidence we have is Donald Trump.
Judy in Denver, Colorado. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, thank you so much. Saudi Arabia was supposedly bombed, one of their oil facilities, and everybody jumped in immediately, claimed it was Iran. Where's the proof? And we gave the Saudis our sophisticated missile defense system. We have sophisticated radar, Persian Gulf, spy satellites. Nothing caught anything leaving Iran. So do you believe this? And troops have been sent to Saudi Arabia and are on the border of Venezuela. So what's going on? And where do you stand?
Yeah, Judy, at this point, we don't have any evidence of where that attack came from. And the president, in my opinion, is jumping, obviously, to support his friend, MBS, in Saudi Arabia, which had it not been all of this probably would have been a big conversation point, because we're sending military assistance to a country that Congress, quite honestly, through what we passed out of the House was looking at trying to stop selling arms to Saudi Arabia because of what they're doing with them in Yemen. So, you're right. This is kind of a story that's not getting coverage because of the impeachment right now, but there is nothing that I know of that directly points to Iran with this, and that's why we're worried that, as the president looks for other subjects to distract from what he's going through, all the rhetoric he said about Iran could put us in a very bad direction. So we're aware of it. We're watching it very closely. But you're right. As far as from the news media perspective, I don't think there is any evidence, Judy, and that's, I think, your question.
Rick in Santa Barbara, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, thanks, Tom. Good morning, Representative Pocan. I wanted to thank you for pledging a couple weeks ago to work for the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. I think that's a really strong position to take. And given what we're talking about today, with the increased stress and chaos around impeachment, are you more concerned now about the president having full authority to use nuclear weapons? And is there anything that we citizens can do to try to quickly lower this existential danger?
Yeah, Rick, I mean, I would probably separate the two issues. I don't think there's any, greater chance of nuclear weapons being used by this president because of what happened. But I do agree with the much bigger issue, which is they are going to try to, especially with aging missiles, try to replace a bunch of nuclear weapons with more nuclear weapons, and that's the exact wrong direction. I support groups like Outrider Foundation and others that are trying to have us take a more serious look at this. There's a number of pieces of legislation I signed on to do just that. I have not voted for the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization, because we're up to $738 million on defense, a lot of that going to missiles. So I don't at all disagree with you on the second part. I just don't know if this raises any additional problems with having the president where he's at.
It's Middays with Mark here with Congressman Mark Pocan, taking your calls for the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a moment, coming up on 45 minutes past the hour. Congressman Pocan is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
And you can find his website at pocan.house.gov, and you can tweet him at Rep. Mark Pocan. And welcome back. Amir in Los Angeles. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hello, Congressman. Hello, Tom. My concern is that this president has done everything he can as obstruction of justice, redacting reports that should go to Congress, and so forth. He has not produced the whistleblowers report yet. I'm just concerned that, they might manufacture one. And also, are we protecting is the whistleblower in protection of some sort so that they're not going to force him to redact his stuff or whatever they produce, by threatening him or by doing some other things, measures, to force him or her to say otherwise. That's one thing that I have to say. The other one is that, while I was on the phone, it got mentioned by others, is that, he may take us to war with Iran or do some other thing. And again, manufacture another, besides this Saudi oil blow up, is to manufacture something else so that just like Gulf of Tonkin, to take us to war so that he can distract from the investigations. And then secondarily, even if he is impeached, I'm not too sure if Pence is the right person to be in power. That's all I had to say.
Sure. Amir, let me take that last one. We don't have a choice, right? If the president broke the law, you impeach him, period. No matter who would be next in line, and that's just the consequences. But it's our job. It's our constitutional requirement to go after someone who's broken the law. On the first point, on the whistleblower report, the president, I don't think can do anything on this. I don't have a direct concern at this point because I think it's just a matter of the Inspector General getting it to us. It's not that it's coming from the White House, so I don't have that fear. And I think, you always have this concern with Donald Trump, right? When he finds a different issue to distract people, he does that very well. But, going to war is a pretty substantial thing, and it's not probably just going to be up to Donald Trump. And I believe there are some safeguards in the system, but clearly we are watching extremely closely during this really important time.
Congressman, to that last question, Mike Pence on September 2nd held a press conference in Poland, and people are just starting to look back at that now. In that press conference, 3 different times, he referenced being asked by Donald Trump to speak with the president of Ukraine about corruption in Ukraine, and said that he did so. If Pence gets dragged into this thing, I know there's no precedent for impeaching both a president and a vice president, but do you think that that's even remotely possible?
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty far down the speculation side. I think he'll be brought in, certainly to the committee, and have to answer. But I think when you start going, and then if he would, I don't know if we're there yet, Tom, I guess is what I'm saying. Other than I think he will certainly be a part of the investigation.
Yeah, okay. We have 30 seconds to the break. What do you expect is going to happen next, and what's the deal with Congress taking 2 weeks off here? How is that going to affect all this?
Yeah, I don't think it'll affect it at all. In fact, I've got the feeling, I can't say it definitively because we haven't had the conversation yet. We've had some preliminary, but I think at least the committee that's dealing with this most directly, intelligence, will probably still be operating during this time. Quite honestly, even if you had every member of Congress here, there's not much different we would be able to do because it's in the hands, really, of the Intelligence Committee. But we are still having conversations. We haven't even been back 24 hours yet as members to figure out next steps.
Yeah, okay. We'll be right back with Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour here on Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Middays with Mark. Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour in our nationwide town hall meeting here. Paul in Glenside, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. My question is about the impeachment inquiry, particularly on the Judiciary Committee with Representative Nadler. I'm old enough to remember the Watergate hearings, and one of the real key points when you knew things were serious was they were assembling a massive amount of legal talent. Top people, because the bar for exactitude and precision just can't be skimped on in any way. It's a very serious undertaking. So what kind of movements are there to assemble this team that's going to be needed that you see?
Yeah, Paul, absolutely. There will be movement. I think the biggest questions before us are a couple things that we don't have answers yet, and I've been in meetings that we've had caucuses. One, we know that this immediate issue goes to Adam Schiff's Committee Intelligence, but ultimately I believe articles of impeachment go to Judiciary, but there's also conversations about whether or not there'll be a select committee formed that may take some of the various, because there's about 6 committees that have some kind of jurisdiction over what's going on, of those folks and others. We don't have that answer yet. That has not been something that's been discussed with us, and I think that's what we're watching very closely. Many of us think the Judiciary Committee is the best committee to do this because they've already been doing this, and we don't want to have any delays whatsoever. But there are some various different conversation points that are out there that we don't have full clarity on that yet. But absolutely, no matter who winds up taking this, we know we need additional legal support. President's had, 30 lawyers or something in place for quite a while getting ready for this. We will be equally strong in what we need to do.
Francesca in Southern California, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, excuse me. Thank you for taking my call. I think you might have answered part of my question. It had to do with vice presidential implication in the impeachment. But you mentioned just a few callers ago, Mr. Pocan, that, of course, the vice president would be called in for testifying. Is that what I'm understanding?
I would assume if he's making statements like that, that would be directly related to the case, right, about the corruption, so supposedly investigation in Ukraine. That is very likely he would be brought in. So I'm not saying it definitively. We haven't had, we've been back for 24 hours, and we basically have an announcement. We're doing an impeachment inquiry, and I know everyone is anxious, as am I, to have more of the details. But as I just mentioned, we're not even exactly sure of the form it's taking, other than this goes to the Intelligence Committee for this particular case. But I would assume that anyone that would be touching any subject matter in this would very likely be brought in.
Lisa, Niles, Ohio, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman. I have a specific question. Page 4 of the memo, they're speaking about the Ukrainian ambassador. It was great that you were the first one who told me that she was a bad ambassador. And then Trump goes on to say, well, she's going to go through some things. I will have Mr. Giuliani give you a call, and I'm also going to have Attorney Barr call, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Am I being paranoid, or does that sound really dirty?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly, Lisa. I mean, we all got this morning, and I was in 2 committee meetings at the exact same time on top of trying to read this. So I have given it a cursory look, but I've got the feeling every word and every sentence is going to be looked at in the coming days, and a lot more information will come out, as well as maybe what's not included in here, and hopefully very soon the actual whistleblower report, which will give us the full information. So I understand this is, I mean, how many times in this nation's history have we faced something like this? This is obviously of intense interest, but in some cases you can't expect everything to happen within 24 hours. I think this and many things will be what unfolds in the coming days.
Tom in Eugene, Oregon, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I believe treason is punishable by hanging. Thank you.
Okay. That was the point that was made by somebody at MSNBC the other day, and let's not go there.
Yeah.
Roger in Effingham, Illinois, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Say, is there any way we can start taking actual transcripts instead of just notes by some of these toadies?
Yeah, I have a lot more questions on this as well, and I think all those things will come out of the process that you're going to see in the Intelligence Committee. But I don't really know the answer to a few other aspects of how they gather information, and I think we're all going to become experts on how these calls take place and what information has and how we get the information. Again, normally you wouldn't worry about a call between a couple world leaders and the fact that someone would be asking them to get political dirt on your opponent's family, but these are unique times.
D. Chris in Burns, Oregon. Do I have your name right?
Yes, you do.
You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
I'd just like to say, what if this is a total setup by the Trump administration to get him to start impeachment, and then it all falls apart for his safety? The Mueller report, everybody's waiting to hang him, and it fell short.
Yeah, I think we can hypothesize lots of things. I don't think that's one that's probably very realistic.
Yeah, once burned, twice shy, I guess. Jesse in Seattle, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan. We have about a minute left, by the way.
Okay, my question's quick here. Hi, Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Jesse.
I'm very concerned that Barr will not recuse himself from Ukraine Gate, and that he will appoint a compromised and Trump loyalist special counsel to investigate, opposite of Mueller. And the investigation, of course, will be a farce. My question is, how can Congress guard against this and ensure that it is shown that Trump committed high crimes? And how will this work if Barr appoints a special counsel?
Yeah, I think at this point, because we're at the impeachment inquiry, we're in the impeachment process, that whatever we do is going to trump, so to speak, no pun intended, whatever they try to do for subterfuge. So we just have to have a really good, thorough process. I have a lot of faith in Adam Schiff. We have both Adam and Jerry Nadler coming to the Progressive Caucus tomorrow afternoon. We're going to get more of an update, and I'll have more information hopefully by the next week, Tom. The first 24 hours, lots going on, but I feel confident in where we are at with the process that we'll have in Congress.
That's great. Congressman Pocan, thanks so much for dropping by today. And every
Absolutely,
week.
Tom. Thank you.
Thanks. Great having you with us. Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program. Congressman Mark Pocan, and a great guy. We'll be back. Naomi Klein will be here in our third hour. In the next hour, I want to dig into this transcript here and share some of my thoughts with you, and we'll pick up your thoughts as well. So stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor. All kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says, think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift, and the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Thom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which is kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic, on ADHD, from back in the 90s. about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter and a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then, how does that apply to modern-day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then, finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. So this is essentially a self-help book, Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents. But it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time, and we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeach mints and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the box, or both window clings, or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here. I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. Because this whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. That was a fascinating hour with Congressman Mark Pocan. We'll see if the impeachment proceedings play out the way that he's suggesting that they will. And that was fascinating. Anyhow, I really enjoy middays with Mark. Every Wednesday he takes calls for a full hour, and it's spectacular. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. I'm looking at this so-called transcript of this telephone conversation between President Zelensky of Ukraine and Donald Trump. And I want to point out a couple of things that I think are important and consequential. And one of them in particular, I think, is the big deal, the real big deal here, that is being completely ignored by the media, or at least was up until the time I went on the air an hour ago. Maybe they've started talking about it. I haven't seen anything about it in the Chiron on CNN, but who knows? Haven't been watching every minute I've been on the air. But if you read this out loud, this is a conversation that started at 9:03 a.m. on July 25th and ended at 9:33. It's a half hour long conversation. And if you read it out loud slowly, it takes 10 or 11 minutes. So there's 20 minutes of content missing here. Now, there are people who, particularly on Twitter, have been saying to me, well, it's not a transcript. When I read this, it reads more like a transcript than like notes. Right? I mean, I've taken notes in meetings. I've taken notes in board meetings. When you take notes, you say, so-and-so said, maybe we should think about this. And such said, well, but the larger consideration is, and you just, you hit the high points like that. This is, looks to me like word for word. It starts out, congratulations, this is the president, congratulations on a great victory. We all watched from the United States, and you did a terrific job. The way you came from behind somebody who wasn't given much of a chance, and you ended up winning easily. It's a fantastic achievement. Congratulations. That is a transcript. Those are not notes. So we have a transcript here that is missing apparently 2/3 of its content, or at least half of its content. So where might that content have gone? Well, speaking as a writer, I've got 25, I think, books in print, and have written, a few more than that. I can tell you that there is this cool little device that writers use where you want to delete some content. For example, I'm working on this book on monopoly right now, and last week I was writing a chapter for it about the founder's perspective on monopoly, and Thomas Jefferson wrote this long letter about monopolies in commerce, and I mean he demanded of James Madison that be something put into the Constitution, a ban on monopolies in commerce, and so he writes this long letter to Governor Morris, and there's a great paragraph, a great couple of paragraphs in there that kind of opens with something and closes with something. And then there's a bunch of stuff in the middle where he just kind of wanders all over the place. So I took the first couple, the first half of a sentence and the last half of a sentence, 3 paragraphs down, and I put them together and I put ... between the two of them, indicating that a bunch of content is missing here. It's called an ellipsis. If you're not, if you didn't take English in high school, and, a lot of us didn't, then I get it. Just plug that into a search engine, ELLIPISIS, ellipsis. And, it'll pop up and say, deleted content. So if we're asking the question, where is the deleted content in this transcript? Given that the transcript represents about 10 or 12 minutes of conversation and it was a 30-minute talk, where is that content? Then what you look for are ellipses, right? That's how in both literature and apparently in transcripts, you delete material. And there are 3 separate places in this transcript where there are ellipses. And I think that they're really important places. I mean, keep in mind, we're missing at least half the conversation. And so here comes the first ellipsis, right? Here's President Zelensky is talking to Trump. This is on page 2. You can, it's only a 5-page document. It's on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post if you want to print it out and read along with me. The bottom of page 2, Zelensky. I would also like to thank you for your great support in the area of defense. We are ready to continue to cooperate for the next steps. Specifically, we are almost ready to buy more javelins. I'm assuming he's talking about the missile system. More javelins from the United States for defense purposes. Trump replies. Okay, so the president of Ukraine has said, we're ready to give you guys some money to get some more weapons, basically bringing up the topic. This is after they've been basically glad-handing each other for a page and a half about you're wonderful, no, you're better, you're wonderful too. And so Zelensky says, we're ready to take those javelins. And Trump replies, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country's been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. Ellipsis. Now, CrowdStrike was the company that did some of the initial work, as I recall. No, CrowdStrike was the group who tracked down the hack on the DNC, was it not? I need to Google this. And I'm pretty sure that CrowdStrike was the company that did the analysis, or perhaps they were the ones who did the analysis on Hillary Clinton's. We'll find out. Sean is looking it up while we talk. Anyhow, he says they say CrowdStrike. And then there's just like an ellipsis. There's a bunch of missing content there. So is he talking about Hillary Clinton's servers? And if so, does he think that she had a server in Ukraine? CrowdStrike was the group that analyzed Hillary Clinton's servers on behalf of whom? Thank you. So, number one, we've got this giant hole where he basically brings up Hillary Clinton. Or maybe the dossier. And then he says, after that, what I think is probably a massive chunk of deleted content, then he says, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis. Now, here we're talking about Ukrainian oligarchs, the people who are paying Paul Manafort, Donald Trump's campaign manager, who's in jail for taking money from Ukrainian oligarchs. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis. What's missing there? And then he goes on, he says, the server, they say Ukraine has it. Really? So this goes back to CrowdStrike, which goes back to Hillary Clinton. But we don't know, because apparently a whole bunch of stuff is missing. Now, somebody tweeted to me saying, a representative of the White House said those ellipses simply mean he paused. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that anymore. This is Sharpiegate all over again, right? So he says, I guess you have one of your wealthy people, ellipsis, deleted material. The server, they say, Ukraine has it. There are a whole lot of things that went on, the whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. Oh, really? I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it. Now, keep in mind, this is all after Zelensky says we'd like our weapon systems. And then he references Robert Mueller. He says, as you saw yesterday, that whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller, an incompetent performance. But they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's very important that you do it if that's possible. So that's the first instance where there are ellipses, and there are two of those on page 2. And then the next one is on page, it's labeled page 3. I'm sorry, that's page 3. The next one is on page 4. And again, it's Donald Trump speaking, and the ellipses don't happen when Zelensky is talking. They only happen when Trump is talking. And I think this is the biggest part of this story, other than the fact that we're talking about this transcript rather than talking about the whistleblower, which is really what, now the White House is going, oh, no, you're not going to get the whistleblower stuff. Anyhow, Trump goes on, he says, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. The Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. He's talking about our Attorney General, Bill Barr, who apparently has not recused himself. And then Trump goes on, Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, ellipsis. Now, what did he say there? So if you can look into it, maybe we can use this as a club to beat up Joe Biden. Or if you can look into it, maybe we can prove that, he's a terrible vice president. Or if you could, what was he saying there? So anyway, that, there's lots and lots of pontification and speculation about all the other pieces of this and what all is going on with this. But I really think that we need to be paying attention to the fact that this is not a complete transcript. This is less than half of the conversation. And the 3 juicy parts where he's talking about oligarchs, about CrowdStrike, and about Biden are the places where we see the ellipses. What say you? We'll be back at 17 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's your media support group for We the People, the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Oh, my. CrowdStrike Holdings, an American cybersecurity company. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's pick up your phone calls here and see where we go with all of this. Mike in Lomita, California. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, just 3 quick points I haven't seen covered in the press. One is that in this whole Kievgate business, I'm wondering whether Team Trump rats are starting to attack one another. Mm-hmm. And will Rudy Giuliani be thrown under the bus for violating the Logan Act? He said on Fox that he was sent over there to Spain to meet with Zelensky.
Right. Well, if he was actually officially sent by the State Department, that would not be a violation of the Logan Act. For people who don't know, the Logan Act specifically says that Americans who are not authorized or employees of the federal government authorized to engage in foreign policy may not engage foreign governments in a way that might affect U.S. foreign policy.
Right. However, I saw that denied on a State Department attribution on one of the news feeds. In other words, State Department said, no, we didn't send him. So if that's the case, it sounds like there's a little bit of infighting going on, maybe. The second point was that when Director of National Intelligence McGuire shows up at Congress tomorrow, if he does, he better bring the original whistleblower complaint and not a transcript or a bardlerized version. Otherwise, he better bring a toothbrush and a bar of soap. Because 1 week ago today, Nancy Pelosi was saying that Lewandowski should have been held on inherent contempt at the time. So, and we know the administration has said that kids in cages are not entitled to a bar of soap and a toothbrush because that's not one of the minimum requirements for people who are being held. And the third point is that Trump seems not only to have done a high political misdemeanor, but also criminal offenses of soliciting a bribe, one of the original particulars in the first bill of impeachment in the English-speaking common law in 1376, and B, violating campaign finance laws for which Michael Cohen is currently serving a prison sentence.
Right. Okay, violating individual one, violating campaign finance laws that where he actually ordered Michael Cohen to pay off Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, or at least Stormy Daniels, and reimburse David Pecker for paying off Karen McDougal. And, Michael Cohen produced the check, and Michael Cohen is now cooling his heels in jail, and, Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator.
And he's doing his felonies right in front of our eyes and defying us.
Yeah, it's pretty grim stuff. Mike, thank you very much for the call. I think that this is. I just have 20 seconds here until the break, so I'm not going to put another caller on until we come back from the break. But I really think that we are being scammed here. I think this is just like Bill Barr's operation, William Barr's, the Attorney General's operation to spin the Mueller report. Right now, they're trying to spin the whistleblower report. And this is how they're doing it, is by releasing this partial transcript that has got 3 major redactions that are quite obvious in it. It's 21 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Thom Hartmann here with you. And it's just amazing stuff going on here. Mike in Downers Grove, Illinois. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Yeah, hi. So, yeah, you pointed out President Trump said that he was going to do an unredacted report, right. And that for sure is a lie now. But here's the other thing I'm wondering about, and I'm reading at the bottom of page 1 of the It says it's a verbatim transcript of the discussion, but
no, it says it is not a verbatim transcript.
Not verbatim, right? And do they actually record these calls at all?
I don't know. They certainly obviously have the ability, but whether they do or not. And by the way, they note the word inaudible is used to indicate portions of a conversation that I think this caution thing, I think this is just boilerplate. I think they just slap this on all documents. This is not specifically written for this document because the word inaudible does not appear anywhere in here. So this is just boilerplate. One thing I noticed is that I think about is sometimes when you say something to somebody on the phone, it is way different than if you're writing it. And that tone of voice would mean you are going to do something about it, aren't you? That sort of thing. Right. I think that's why I was asking about it, because I thought sometimes there's some coercive tone of voice that wouldn't get picked up in a transcript. Yeah. No, we'll never hear the recording of this if one exists, I guarantee you. And frankly, I agree with Michael McFaul. He's made this point several times on MSNBC yesterday, that once the government starts releasing transcripts of conversations between the President of the United States and foreign leaders, you have started down a very, very dangerous road. I don't recall this ever having been done before. I may be wrong on that, but I don't think that it's ever been done before, because what it does is it says to other foreign leaders, you can't trust that you have privacy when you're talking to the President of the United States. And I'm not, everybody, of course, assumes that, obviously foreign intelligence officials, or whatever you would call it, the CIA, the NSA, the people in the State Department, the people are listening, right? Everybody assumes that translators are there and everything else. But to think that the public might see it, that's something that, at this point in time, that's a huge and dangerous step that Trump has taken with this. And it tells me how freaked out and desperate he is to change the subject away from the whistleblower complaint. And I'm guessing that the whistleblower complaint is going to point right to those 3 sets of ellipses in this document. I mean, time will tell, but that would be my bet, Mike. So
I found 6 ellipses. You just do a find in the PDF, and I found 6 ellipses. But
you found 6?
Too, yeah, I found 6.
Huh. I have not.
Yeah, they're hard to see. Just do a find with the ellipses, 3 dots, and you'll up.
So I see 2 of them on page 3. I see 1 on page 4. What am I missing here?
I've been trying to find them, because when it highlights them, you could barely see them, but they're there. You have to look at every word because but do a search like that, or have someone on your team do a search. I think you'll find, according to my
I will do that during the break that we're about to hit in just a second. Yeah. Because I just read this, but I read slowly. I tend to read word for word. It slows me down, but I enjoy reading, and I also, I think it helps with writing. But I'll look. I will do that during the break. Mike, thanks a lot for the call. It's great to hear from you. We'll be back. It's 28 minutes, coming up on 28 minutes past the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So Donald Trump has now basically confessed and confirmed that he tried to use a foreign government to smear his political opponent.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor. All kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool, and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift, and the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Tom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which it's kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic, on ADHD from back in the 90s, about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter in a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then how does that apply to modern day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. So this is essentially a self-help book. Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents. But it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time, and we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeachments and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the fox or both window clings or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here. I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great, $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. Because this whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So, boy, a lot going on. And we're going to hear from Bob Ney in about 15 minutes, by the way. I'd love to get his take on this as a former Republican member of the House of Representatives, what he thinks about all of this that's going on. I've been researching CrowdStrike and ellipses. I did pull the document, a PDF of the document, and did a Control-F search for ellipses, for the 3 dots that indicate that something has been deleted. And the only ones that are actually in the text are those 3 that I've identified. There's another one that, according to the PDF document, is on either side of a period. There were actually 3 periods there. And I don't know if that's just an artifact of the PDF document, or if there was actually an ellipsis there and they decided to white out a couple of the dots on either side of it. I don't know, but they're still showing up when you do a Control-F on the PDF off the Washington Post page. So, interesting stuff. Chris in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey, Tom. I just want to mention, like you've already talked about some of the stuff, as far as the inaccuracy of the document there. But, a lot of people are assuming that, okay, here it is, take it. But we don't even know if it's the right phone call. I mean, it sounds like it could be, right? But we don't know for sure. And, no one's really talking about that. When I say no one, I mean, in the general media. And that's one of the... Yeah, well, that's the point. I mean, the whistleblower is talking about, there's 8 different incidents, at least according to the media that we're hearing. And, this transcript, which is supposed to be a 30-minute conversation, or these notes of a 30-minute conversation, if you read it out loud, runs about 10 minutes. If you read it slowly, maybe 12 or 15 at the most. And then there's 3 spots where there's ellipses in there. So we just don't know what's going on with it. And plus... This is, I think this is the shiny object that is being dangled in front of us to say, here, look at this. Don't talk about the whistleblower. Jimmy in Los Angeles. Hey, Jimmy, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, first-time caller. Really love your show. I think you do a great job.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the transcript memo you guys have been talking about. You just mentioned it now. Certainly should be concerned about the ellipsis and them deleting stuff. Of course, Trump lies 12,000 times. We can't trust anything he says or puts out. But I will say, MSNBC, they actually did have somebody on recently who is one of those people who transcribed those notes for these phone calls, and he said it's not uncommon for a 30-minute call to be pared down to about 15 minutes of content because there's a translator. There's usually a translator translating back and forth. So I want to let you know it's not coming from me. It's coming from somebody who does this. That I don't think I'm as concerned about the length of the content that you're concerned about. I'm certainly concerned about the deleted content, which probably happens. Yeah. But the length, I'm not as concerned because there's usually translators involved, and that'll take up half the phone call itself.
Well, we'll find out. We will find out. I don't know how competent Zelensky is in English, but it seems like this was a conversation entirely in English. We'll find out. Joe in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, Joe, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I want to talk about what I saw on Lawrence O'Donnell last night. He had Larry Pfeiffer on, who was the chief of staff for the Situation Room under Obama, and he was talking about the transcripts. And he said that these aren't actually transcripts of conversations. What these are is you have three people sitting in the Situation Room wearing headphones, sitting at keyboards, and they're typing their little hearts out. After the phone call, they get together and they come up with a rough draft of what they think was said. This thing gets passed on to a member of the NSC who finalized, probably someone who knows a little bit more about the topic. He finalizes it, and that becomes the transcript. There are no tape recordings. They quit doing that in the 70s, I guess, after Nixon.
Yeah.
And so these really aren't transcripts. These are just...
Yeah, I get that, Joe, and that's how it's typically done, and presumably that's how it was done in this case. But still, A, I'm still concerned about the ellipses, and B,
sure.
As I said, I think that this is the shiny object that is supposed to distract us, from what's really going on here. Thanks a lot for the call, Joe, and thanks for listening to us in Louisville there. Richard in Chicago. Hey, Richard, you're on the air. What's up?
Oh, hi. I was just going to, that was exactly what I heard today, too, that there most likely isn't, hard to believe, a recording of this. I have no idea why, and if it's changed. That was the guy's point, is that he doesn't have current knowledge. So I was going to hang up, actually, because that's the prior caller.
Okay, well, point made. Thanks a lot for the call. Glenn in Falls City, Washington. Hey, Glenn, you're on the air.
Hey, Tom. My thinking through this whole thing is, yes, we've got the impeachment to deal with. We've been hoping for that for a long time. But the Republicans have been the law and order party for so long, and obviously they're not. That's a real missed marketing point.
Yeah, I think the Republicans, by and large, are the law and order party when it comes to black people.
Yes, agreed. So when it comes to broader marketing and doing a little bit of countermeasures to the political backlash that might happen with impeachment, even though we're not going to convince anyone.
Right.
Still just saying, no, we need to reinforce these laws that Trump got around. How would you like it if a Democratic president did all this stuff?
Yeah.
No, we need to strengthen the institution of our democracy.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
do you want future presidents? Do you want President Biden or President Warren or President Sanders cutting deals with foreign governments to help themselves get elected and to smear their political opponents? I don't think so, and that's the point. Yeah, well said, Glenn. Diane in San Diego, you're on the air, Diane.
I'm not from San Diego, but anyway.
Palm Springs, right?
No, Bodfish.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyhow, you're on the air. What's up?
Anyway, I was watching MSNBC last night, and that question came up, do they still record the presidents when they talk to foreign leaders on the phone? Right. And no, they don't do it anymore. I guess they stopped doing it in the 70s.
Right, yeah, post-Nixon. I have heard that also.
Anyway.
Thank you, Diane. Appreciate the call. Paul in Seattle. Hey, Paul. Thanks for listening to SiriusXM. What's up?
Well, of all the thousands and thousands of reasons to impeach Trump, I wonder what the effect is of choosing this one, because it doesn't really move the needle in terms of Republicans versus Democrats. But what it does make me feel is that I need to rally behind Joe Biden and not criticize Joe Biden. So I think it's really helping him to lock up the nomination. It's a form of...
It might also spill over on him, and that's what Trump is trying to do. And we forget, and thank you, Paul, for the call, we forget that this is the second whistleblower who has come forward. Right, the first one came forward 3 or 4 weeks ago in the IRS, about somebody in the chain of command at the IRS who is involved with Donald Trump's taxes and the refusal of the IRS and Trump's toadies, Trump's guys to hand his taxes over to Richard Neal, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, that the law explicitly says, hey, you have to do this, and then they're saying no. Rick in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hey, Rick, what's up?
Hey, Tom, really enjoy the show. I just had a quick question. It seems like this is almost like an administrative coup, and if the Attorney General has kind of abdicated any willingness to hold anyone accountable for anything in the face of however obvious and egregious the acts may be, who does? And what are our options here? I mean, it just seems like we're just kind of sit here and take it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think that this is, Bill Barr, William Safire back in the day in '92 called him a cover-up General Barr because he covered up Iran-Contra by recommending to George Herbert Walker Bush when he was the Attorney General that Bush pardon Elliot Abrams and Ollie North and 3 other people, which shut down the entire Iran-Contra investigation. I think it's a big deal. Richard in San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air, Richard.
Yeah, hi, Tom. Am I overthinking things? Get worried about the idea that the Democrats are going to screw this whole thing up? Don't they go on?
You're not overthinking it.
Don't they go on recess on Friday for 2 weeks? So for 2 weeks, we could not very easily lose the narrative of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And, we could.
Well, this is something when Congressman Pocan.
And never get anybody.
Yeah, when Congressman Pocan was on in the last hour, maybe you didn't catch it, he's the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he took calls from listeners all over the country for a full hour here just now. And he said, we've had this for 24 hours. We don't know what's going to, how the next 2 weeks are going to play. There's supposed to be a congressional recess. He said he believes that the committees involved, or at least the Intelligence Committee at the very least, will probably not recess. But, we'll find out probably by the end of the day today. Richard, thank you for the call. We're going to check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world in about 4 minutes. And at the top of the next hour, Naomi Klein will be with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And as previously mentioned, if you're in the Portland area tonight at 7 o'clock in Beaverton at the Powell's Books in Beaverton, Naomi Klein will be there, and I'll be there with her. And welcome back. Tim in Aloha, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, it's just a reoccurring theme is what's going on. When the redacted Mueller report came out, Barr and Rush Limbaugh and Fox News said that was totally vindicated him, which his base went along with. All this is another repeat is basically what's going on. They don't care. They're not talking to anybody but their base, basically, is what they're doing. And, a prime example is that when I listened to your show yesterday, you had a guy named Josh, and then there was another guy named Lafayette and a guy named Edwin, and they were both Republicans. And the disgust in your face and the confusion based on those calls was just scary, That's what we have to understand what's going on in this country. That's the base that's partially keeping that man in office.
Yeah, I was talking with Jefferson Smith about this yesterday, a fellow who fills in for me a lot here. And he was pointing out there's apparently a new book out, and I've got to track it down and read it, where they took millions and millions of data points having to do with people's participation on Facebook and Twitter. And what they found was that people who identify themselves as conservative or right-wingers or whatever you want to call it, even Republicans, that basically they live in one complete bubble. And the biggest attractors in that bubble, the things that draw the most attention and the most activity and that tend to be the things that interconnect most of these people, are the most extreme positions of it. The Fox News, the right-wing hate radio, the Alex Jones stuff, all that kind of stuff. But it's nearly sealed. And then you look at the rest of America, and they're just scatterplots. I mean, they're all over the place, and there's not a strong attractor on the left or for the rest of the country, for that matter, with regard to politics. I mean, there might be for cat videos, but not for politics, this conservative infrastructure that they have built out is just mind-boggling. But the two just don't meet. The Venn diagrams used to overlap, and they don't anymore. And that's a real tragedy, frankly, for our democracy. Anyhow, I got to move along. Tim, thanks for the call. Jim in Oakland, California. Hey, Jim, what's up?
How you doing, Tom? I'd like to just say that I think the transcript release is a diversion to slow down the momentum that Elizabeth Warren has gained, because I think she's more popular than Biden, and I think they would like to have Biden as opposed to Elizabeth Warren. I think we could have them both, but Warren would be the president.
Well, anything is possible. Are you suggesting, is the bottom line of what you're saying, Jim, that you think that this whole kerfuffle is going to help or hurt Joe Biden?
It's helping Joe Biden because he's getting a lot of attention to how Trump is so afraid of him. Right. So for people that support Biden, they're like, yeah, okay, this is exactly what we want. Yeah. I think Biden can be there, but I think we should have Elizabeth Warren as our president.
Yeah, personally, I'm more in favor of one of the more progressive candidates, but I'll support, whoever the party nominates,
Yeah.
but whoever we all nominate by showing up and voting in the damn primaries. But yeah, I think so, Jim. And I think that if this, if Biden becomes the nominee and this was the attack that they were planning on him, his son was on the board of this gas company in Ukraine, that's corrupt. I think they may have blown it up, and this probably, Trump and all these guys on the right, they did not plan for this to be coming out. They planned for this to be, they were doing their research that they were going to roll out then next year after the primaries, frankly, I think. But Jim, thanks a lot for the call. I appreciate it. Bob Ney is up next, a former congressman from Ohio, now a reporter with Talk Media News. We will find out his thoughts on this. Bob and I have been talking in an email here this morning about the whole transcript thing and the ellipses and all that stuff. Stick around. We'll be right back. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Over at thomhartmann.com, you can check it out, get the whole thing. So check it out at thomhartmann.com. Again, we talk media news and find out what's going on in the world today. On the line with us is the author of Sideswiped, former Ohio Congressman Bob Ney. Congressman, welcome back to the program. Have you had an opportunity to dig into the ellipses that you and I were talking about offline just before I went on the air?
Well, yes, Tom, the thing that struck me, and I thought maybe it was just me, as we had talked, I read through that at a very slow voice pace. I read it out loud, and I'm talking about the transcript. And the reason I did, no matter what I did, whatever I came up with, the transcript started at 9:03. The call it ended at 9:33. That's 30 minutes of conversation. The best I could do was 2 or 4 minutes per page. So if you total that up, you have 20 minutes. Therefore, somewhere along the line, I'm going to conservatively, safely say 8 to 10 minutes is missing.
Right. And somebody called and said, well, wait a minute, there were translators on this thing. That would have added time. But if Zelensky is not fluent in English, and I honestly don't know the answer to the question of whether he is or he isn't, but if everything that was said by each party had to be translated, then there's too much content here.
Well, exactly. But also, in translation, too, they have devices. I've used them myself on NATO trips with congressional delegations where you do have an earpiece, Tom, and it's translated as you speak.
Oh, real-time translation, right.
Absolutely. We did it in Strasbourg with the late Tom Lantos.
Right.
We went through tons of hours of hearings to do that. They use this earpiece. It's simultaneously translated, and you talk back. Otherwise, they would have to do normal translation. They don't do that. So
Okay,
I'm going to hold to the 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So there's 8 to 10 minutes missing, and there's 3 spots in here where there are 3 dots and ellipses indicating that something's been deleted. And just by coincidence, they happen to be the 3 most sensitive things that are discussed. CrowdStrike, which was the company that analyzed Hillary Clinton's server and said, yeah, it was Fancy Bear and whatever, the other, the Russians who were in here, and, or the DNC server, excuse me, and, Joe Biden and the whole weapons thing. I mean, this is crazy. Bob, what?
And again, they're not doing a Skype call, Tom, so they have earpieces. That is very common, and it cuts down the amount of time for these calls.
Yeah. So what's the latest news on any of this, or are we up to date right now with this? And what's the deal with the whistleblower? I understand that we're being told, sorry, you're not going to get Congress is being told, sorry, you're not going to get the whistleblower report.
Well, the whistleblower wants to speak, which there's no reason that the whistleblower cannot speak, because the White House cannot tell the whistleblower not to talk. Right. Now, they can do that in a closed forum. They can do it in an open forum. That would depend on what the attorney for the whistleblower would think would be best. At this point in time, probably the name's going to come out anyway, with this high level of case, and I doubt anything could be done to them anyway because there's too much focus on this. So I think the whistleblower is important to try to verify, are there pieces missing in this conversation that we don't know about, number one. But number two, with the content of this, it's very clear that Chairman Nadler, who has called upon Attorney General Barr to recuse himself from anything to do with this case, is correct in this situation, Tom, because now that it's been mentioned that the president was not only going to have the Attorney General of the United States communicate about Mr. Biden, but he was also going to have his own a political personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, communicate. So therefore, there is no way that the Attorney General of the United States can be part of investigating anything when it comes to this. There's no way. It's got to be the Judiciary Committee.
On Fox News again last night, Giuliani for the second time said, no, I didn't go on my own. I didn't go as the president's lawyer. I went for the State Department. Is he desperately trying to stay out of jail, or is our Secretary of State here, Mr. Pompeo, up to his eyeballs in this stuff?
Well, there's a couple of things here. First of all, who pays Rudy Giuliani? Has he been paid by the campaign? Is he doing this pro bono? If he's doing this pro bono, then that is in-service kind to the campaign if he's doing political actions on behalf of the President of the United States. So therefore, that's a campaign finance violation, frankly. Otherwise, if he went for the State Department, is he on official payroll of the United States, or can he officially speak for the United States? Because, by the way, if he can't officially speak for the United States, he has violated the Logan Act, which is conducting basically foreign policy as a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, remarkable.
Sure. So either way you turn it, Rudy Giuliani does not fit into this process.
Right. So Mitt Romney this morning said this is troubling, and that's about as far as he would go. You served in Congress for a number of years. You know a lot of these guys on both sides, frankly, although you were on the Republican side at the time. How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, no, this is interesting because, first of all, everybody is starting to compare this to the Nixon, the Clinton impeachment. These are all completely different scenarios, completely. Right. Clinton was a one-based issue of perjury. Nixon resigned due to pressure. First of all, Trump is not going to resign due to pressure. Now,
do you think he might if he cuts a deal?
No, I don't think he will. I don't believe. First of all, I think, Tom, that he was not supposed to bring up Biden's name in this call. I really don't think he was supposed to himself.
He just did it impulsively.
He couldn't help himself. It's the art of the deal. Yeah. He looks at everything like a business instead of politics. Tom, I don't believe he was supposed to bring this up. They were going to wait and let it fester. And he brought it up, and now he's putting Republicans in a box. If more comes out towards these conversations and one or two people start to go, the president's going to have a problem with the Republican side.
Very interesting. Bob Ney with Talk Media News. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. We'll be back with Naomi Klein. She has a new book out, On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal. Stick around. It's going to be fascinating. Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor. All kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV, to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool, and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift and the Any Functional Adult long-sleeved shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Thom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which is kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic, on ADHD from back in the 90s, about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter in a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then how does that apply to modern day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. So this is essentially a self-help book, Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents, but it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time. And we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeachments and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the fox, or both window clings, or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here, I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great, $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. Get this whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Declining Power, the book, The Russia Trap.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And in the studio with me, which is like super cool, is Naomi Klein. She has a new book out, On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal. Tonight, she and I will be at, well, you will principally be, I'll be kind of emceeing, I guess, the thing, tonight at Powell's Books in Beaverton. And then and that's today's Wednesday. Tomorrow, Thursday, you're going to be in Oakland at the First Congregational Church. Friday, you're going to be in San Mateo. Saturday, you're going to be in Chico, California. I have done these kinds of book tours. In fact, I did one just 3 months ago for my book on guns. And boy, it just runs you ragged. I wish you the very best on this, Naomi. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Tom.
And NaomiKlein.org, by the way, if you want to get tickets or you want more information on this.
Yeah,
you have written about.
Coast.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm traveling less these days, so it's fun. I haven't done a West Coast speaking tour in a while, so
good.
It's nice to be back and
I'm glad you like
reconnect
it.
with folks.
I'm glad you like it. You and I have talked over the years about a variety of things, from capitalism to climate, and your book brings a lot of this stuff together, whether it was no logo or shock doctrine or this changes everything, just brilliant writing that you do. What's the principal message of On Fire?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand about the moment we're at is that we are living a time of 3 fires. We've got the climate fires, the whether it's in the Pacific Northwest every summer, these seasons of smoke. We're seeing wildfires, in the Arctic, Siberia, places where you're not supposed to have wildfires. As Greta Thunberg says, our house is on fire, and we've known this for a long time. But that's not the only kind of fires we are facing. We also have the political fires of the far right that increasingly are building political power by creating this in-group the protected in-group and then all of these out-group others, and pitting the in-group against the out-group.
Give me an
at the
example
border.
of what you're talking about.
Well, in the United States, it's obvious with Trump and the specter of the invading army of immigrants. But he's been palling around with Modi lately, and Modi does the same thing with the in-group of Hindus, the out-groups of Muslims. We see a similar MO with a lot of these figures, the sort of militarization of of borders, mass incarceration of these out-group others. It keeps people fighting with each other, and it keeps them free to plunder. I mean, Bolsonaro is doing the same thing in Brazil. And there is an outright war on truth, on fact. Bolsonaro just addressed the United Nations and said the Amazon wasn't on fire, actually. It's just a big misinformation campaign. I think there's a connection between these sort of the rise of the far right and the fact that we are in this moment where the climate crisis is no longer a future crisis. We're living it. We're in it. I think people understand that we are now in an era where more and more people are going to be on the move, looking for safety, looking to share the remaining habitable places on our planet. And I think that's why we are seeing a resurgence of ideologies that just explicitly rank human life. These people are better than those people. And if that's true, well, then it's okay to let them drown, to let them die, to lock them up indefinitely. And we're seeing this. We're seeing it in the Mediterranean. We're seeing it with the Australian government, with their offshore migration detention camps. So there is a third fire as well, which is the fires of this growing climate justice movement. And we just saw it burn pretty brightly on Monday with 4 million people around the world participating in these youth-organized climate strikes, but not just young people, adults joining, different sectors joining, like tech workers. And so it's kind of a race against time because we have a little bit more than a decade to cut global emissions in half if we are going to preserve, anything like a habitable planet. So, that's, I guess, the message of my book is that third fire, the fire of our movements, has to be powerful enough to take on the fires of the far right. And I really think it's a Green New Deal that is our ticket for building that kind of broad movement, that broad coalition.
And I want to get to that in just a moment, but here in the United States, we're actually seeing climate refugees on our southern border. I mean, I'd read this stuff, but then NBC went down to Guatemala and tracked back into some of these remote parts of Guatemala that a lot of these refugees are coming from, and found literally places where people were starving to death because they're in the 5th year of a drought, and there's literally no food. They've been eating grass and tree barks and things. And this is the source of many of these people who are on our southern border, that Donald Trump is throwing their children in jail and passing out billions of dollars to his buddies in the private prison industry.
Even as he cuts hundreds of millions of dollars in aid to Central America, much of which was going to help farmers who are dealing with drought.
Right, and none of this is ever talked about in the context of climate change refugees.
Yeah. No, and I think they're very conscious of it, though, because if you look at what the Trump administration has done with its immigration policy, one of the first things they did is take aim at TPS, temporary protected status, right? First for Haitians, then for Salvadorans. So these are millions of people who are in the United States under a program that provides temporary status, to people who are displaced by some sort of extreme event in their countries.
In other words, refugees.
Yes, refugees, but specifically refugees from, and it lists it lists the basis on which you can get temporary protected status. Can be war, which is true for other ways of getting a refugee status, but it specifically lists natural disasters, and that's very significant because climate refugees, we're talking about them, but climate refugees actually don't exist under international law. There is no such thing as a climate refugee under international refugee law. It's outdated because the conventions were written before climate change.
You can have a refugee from an earthquake.
Well, you actually can't. Refugees from wars, you can get refugee status because of human rights abuses, but not because of natural disasters. But TPS was an exception. TPS, like people from Haiti in the United States, got TPS because of the earthquake in Haiti, and so they have really understood that this is a loophole. TPS is a loophole.
They being the
Trump administration that allows people to get status because of natural disasters. Now, earthquakes aren't connected to climate change, but superstorms are. And we just saw with the Bahamas that people are being refused entry to the United States, and Trump is calling them drug dealers. In the aftermath of a Category 5 hurricane. Right? So I think they absolutely understand that more and more people are going to be seeking haven because of the climate crisis, and this is their climate change adaptation. Their plan is the fortressing of the borders, and it's getting more and more explicit.
As much as anybody I know, you're a citizen of the world. I'm curious your thoughts on this whole impeachment falderall here, this transcript that we've been talking about in the last hour, the whistleblowers, how the world views this, how we should be viewing this.
Right. I mean, well, first of all, I think it's a very good thing that finally Nancy Pelosi has decided that enough is enough and has begun impeachment proceedings. I think it could have begun before. I'm glad it's happening now. I'm glad it's and I do think that even though we know that the Senate is not going to impeach him, this will hurt him, despite their bravado. It's going to help our reelection. It's not. I don't think it's going to help. And I think anything that keeps Trump from getting a second term is incredibly important, because one of the things I feel like people sometimes underestimate is just what that second term would look like. You look at Modi, for instance. He just got his second term. Modi's second term is not a continuation of his first term.
Right, it's like unleashed.
Utterly unleashed. Utterly unleashed.
We'll pick up that conversation in just a moment. We're talking with Naomi Klein, whose new book is On Fire, The Burning Case for Green New Deal. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And Naomi will be tonight at Powell's in Beaverton, and then tomorrow in Oakland, and Friday in San Mateo, and Saturday in Chico, California. It's all at naomiklein.org. And welcome back. So let's talk about the Green New Deal for a minute, if that's all right.
Yeah.
It's in the subtitle of your book. I was listening to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about this morning on NPR, and she was saying, this is really a superstructure, an infrastructure. It's not, the specifics are not there yet. It's really a set of goals.
Right.
You want to speak to that and how you conceptualize the Green New Deal?
Right. So I think that's exactly right. It is not a singular climate policy like cap and trade or a carbon tax. It is the plan for the next economy. In the same way that the original New Deal, from which the Green New Deal takes its name, was not one policy. It was the governing structure of FDR's administration until the war. There were multiple programs within it, huge infrastructure programs that electrified rural America. There was Social Security. There was unemployment insurance. There was the breaking up of the banks. I mean, these were all New Deal policies. So I think we have to get out of the idea that the Green New Deal is just one thing. Mm-hmm. It is the framework for how the U.S. economy should work in the context of a carbon-constrained world. Mm. So last year, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the scientific body that was created by the United Nations in order to advise governments about the scientific consensus on climate change, what they should expect, what our carbon budget is. I stress this to say, because that means they're a very conservative body. This is not like one lone scientific paper published in a journal. This is the work of thousands of scientists collaborating, coming to a consensus document that doesn't get released until the governments sign off on that document. So that body.
And I think a lot of people don't understand what the word consensus means and why that's actually in some ways working against us.
Well,
basically means any one person can veto the entire thing.
Well, it's true, and it does tend to make these reports more conservative, right? Than you would have if you went through a normal peer review process. There are checks and balances, but there are so many more checks and balances for a body like the IPCC to come out with a report like they did last October about what it would take to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Which, given what we're seeing with warming of 1 degree Celsius, which is where we're at right now. They're saying that it would be exceedingly dangerous to allow more warming than 1.5. Okay, so what they said is if we want to do this, we need to cut global emissions in half in the next 12 years. So that was a year ago. That means that now we have 11 years, and so 11 years from now, the whole global economy needs to have halved its greenhouse gas emissions. It is very, very, very difficult to do. So the Green New Deal resolution that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey released a few months ago begins with that deadline and says, okay, we have, when there's a new government, we'll have just a decade, right? 10 years to do this. The IPCC report said that this is not going to be done with a singular carbon-based policy. What they said is that it's going to require fundamental changes, transformations of every aspect of society. Okay? That's what a Green New Deal is.
Well, we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Naomi Klein is in the studio with us talking about the Green New Deal and her new book, On Fire, and she's on book tour. She'll be here in Portland tonight at Powell's in Beaverton, if you're in the neighborhood, and tomorrow in Oakland, the day after San Mateo, the day after that Chico, and then on to New Jersey, Illinois, Texas, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Wow, you're all bouncing all over.
Good God.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the Green New Deal, and you were basically summarizing it as this is the structure within which the United States can start to meet the UN goals of within 11 years cutting worldwide carbon emissions in half. Do I have that right?
Exactly. So the first thing that this plan needs to do is get to zero emissions as quickly as possible. Because even though the whole world has 12 years to cut it in half, countries like the United States that have been emitting at the highest level for longest actually have to do it faster. So it's a big lift, but the philosophy of this type of approach is, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said it very well, it's a war on poverty at the same time, right? It recognizes that we don't just live at a time where we have a carbon crisis. We also have an economic inequality crisis. We have a racial injustice crisis. We have a crisis of gender exclusion and gender violence. We've got all manner of crises, and we are not going to get anywhere by trying to pit them against each other and saying, my crisis is bigger than your crisis. What a Green New Deal is saying is if we do have to change everything about how we live in cities, about how we move ourselves around, what transportation we use, if we have to change how we get our energy, why wouldn't we seize this opportunity where we're changing things anyway to very deliberately battle these systemic crises of various forms of inequality in our societies?
And it's a reasonable question, and it seems that the answer is because there's a bunch of billionaires out there who are making a hell of a lot of money on fossil fuels, and they don't want this to happen.
Right, and then I think that that's precisely why we need this intersectional, holistic vision that is going to offer a lot to those people in the United States who have the rawest deal right now, who have the weakest public services, that aren't served by public transit, that are living in crumbling public housing, who have lead in their water, who are being sacrificed already, because this is the fight of our lives. Fossil fuel companies are going, and the banks that fund them, will continue to fight like hell to protect a business model that is at war with life on Earth. They will fight whatever climate policies we put forward, as they have, right? So we need to build an army. We need to build a coalition that will fight for this alternative, not just because it's better than climate apocalypse, but because it's better than what they have right now. I hear this criticism from, friends in the climate movement who are like, why are you making this harder? Why are you adding all this justice stuff? Fighting climate change is hard enough. Why are you making it about racial justice and fixing fighting capitalism and fixing the economy? And my argument is, this is how we win, because we don't win by having a sort of comfortable middle-class white climate movement, which we've had for too long. We win by merging all of these vibrant movements, whether it's the immigrant rights movement, the Black Lives Matter, so many people who are fighting for basic rights in this country. If they're able to see a better future for themselves in a justice-based transition off of fossil fuels, then they'll fight for it, and they'll fight hard. Because when people are fighting for homes, jobs, healthy air and water for their kids, they fight really, really hard.
We have just a minute till we hit a break here. Are you seeing an intersection between this and your book, Shock Doctrine?
Tom, I feel like everything I've done since I wrote Shock Doctrine, it came out in 2007, has been an attempt to prevent the shock doctrine from repeating itself, right? This strategy that I described, where in times of crisis, in times of shock, what we see again and again is wealthy interests descending and using people's fear and dislocation to push through policies that create more inequality, more exclusion, more violence. I started writing about climate change after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, because I saw what our current system produces, which is not just more climate change. It's more inequality, more racial injustice, more privatization. In New Orleans, the schools were privatized, the hospitals were closed down, the public housing was bulldozed. That is how our system responds to climate change now, right? Just with more barbarism, with more brutality. So I see this as the anti-shock doctrine. I see this as the people's plan for how we're going to actually get at the root causes for why we're getting all these shocks in the first place.
Wow. Yeah. It's a big lift. And
oh yeah. No one's saying it's easy.
There you go. Naomi Klein .org is the website if you want more information. The book is On Fire, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal. She'll be tonight at Powell's in Portland, at Powell's in Beaverton. And tomorrow, Oakland, then San Mateo, then Chico, and on the road show goes. Naomi, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you so much.
It's great talking with you. We'll be back. We'll get back to our conversation about Bill Barr and company.
Listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And all things transcript and whistleblower. Stick around. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we're throwing everything against the kitchen wall here, or the kitchen sink, I guess is the metaphor, all kinds of great goodies to encourage you to call now and make a contribution to Free Speech TV to support this program, to support this network, to support all the programming on Free Speech TV. It's just some great stuff here. With the $20 gift, there is the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $25, also with a $20 gift, you have a choice. You can get the window cling, these things that stick on your window without any glue. So you don't have to worry about leaving crud behind or anything. Window clings are just cool, and people love them. One says any functioning adult. That's with a $20 gift. Another says think outside the fox. Yeah, that's a good one. So those are the $20 gifts, your choice. One of the two window clings or the bumper sticker. With a $25 gift, we have impeachments. Seriously. Peach-flavored impeachments. And with a $30 gift, you've got the Donald Trump small hand soap. I told you, we're going nuts here. All kinds of cool stuff. I don't mean going nuts in a bad way, in a good way. It's like going to the carnival or to the store. I mean, look at all this cool stuff. With a $50 gift, the Free Speech TV Change the Channel tote bag. With a $100 gift and the Any Functional Adult long sleeve shirt. Oh, by the way, the window clings, you can get both window clings for $35. Back to those. With a $150 gift, a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. With a $250 gift, we'll have this virtual meet and greet where we get together online and you'll be able to see me, I'll be able to hear you, and we can talk. With a $360 gift, you get the Study Up package with Professor Thom, not a word that I typically use for myself, but people call and use that phrase, which includes our Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker and 3 of my books, which is kind of an eclectic collection rather than just doing all the old political stuff. The first is one of my newest books out, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. This is a complete rewrite, basically, of the book, my very first book on this topic on ADHD from back in the 90s, about how ADHD is, for many people, not a liability. In fact, it can be an asset, and how we need to reconsider how we think about ADHD. Hunter in a Farmer's World. My book, Walking Your Blues Away, which gets into, first of all, there's some fascinating history in here about the whole psychology field or the history of it. Why did, who was Franz Anton Mesmer, and where did mesmerism come from, and why does that matter? What did Ben Franklin think about it? And then why did Sigmund Freud use mesmerism? And then, more importantly, why did Freud stop using mesmerism? And then how does that apply to modern day psychological techniques for dealing with stress, trauma, depression, things like this? And then finally, how to use these techniques yourself, basically. This is essentially a self-help book, Walking Your Blues Away. And then the Thom Hartmann Reader, which is, I think it's 10 of my different books. I may be wrong. I should grab one and look in the table of contents, but it's a bunch of my different books that, we've pulled chapters out, put a little explanation of the context of the chapter, and there it is. I mean, it's a collection of writings. So all 3 of those books plus the bumper sticker for $360. And then with $1,000, come into Portland and hang out in our studio and our humble abode here, and we'll have a good time. And we'll go have lunch afterwards. So those are the premiums, including these cool new goodies, the impeachments and the Trump small hand soap and the window clings that say any functioning adult or think outside the fox or both window clings or all 3 of these books. I mean, brand new stuff that we've added, plus the things that we've been talking about for 2.5 weeks. So we're hitting the end of the week here. I mean, today is Wednesday. We've got 2 more days to go, but we're getting close to the wire. So please call now. Here's some great, $20 gifts that make great birthday presents, or hang on to them for the holidays, or all kinds of cool stuff. So 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV needs your help now. So please call now, 877-378-8669. You can also donate over at freespeech.org, 877-378-8669. Because this whole collection of cool gifts, or premiums, I guess is the official word. But most importantly, you're helping keep progressive radio and television, television in this case, absolutely, helping to keep progressive television on the air. 877-378-8669. Thank you. May 20, the 7-day Oceania cruise will be going to Bermuda, and I'll be hosting onboard events about the topics of the day. More info at thomhartmann.com or 800-856-1155. Welcome back. The House committee chairs are confirming the Hunter over at Daily Kos. The headline kind of says it all. House committee chairs say White House readout confirms worst fears. This was a shakedown. Donald Trump doing a shakedown of another country. Hey, I need some information here. Tell me about what you know about CrowdStrike. Tell me what you know about Joe Biden. Yeah. And, excuse me. Rudy has apparently shown up on Fox News, and he's dancing his heart out. It's all just fascinating. Anyhow, let's pick up some of your phone calls here. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hi. I find it outrageous, and it just came up that they don't record the president's calls anymore.
Right.
And when you're a soldier, you're a soldier 24 hours. When you're the head of all the soldiers, you're still 24 hours. You're president, you're 24 hours a day. And my boss used to say, don't tell me anything you don't want the owner to know. And by the way, everything that you do here while you're here belongs to us. All emails, all phone calls.
Right.
We're not monsters. You can have emergency calls. But that's the way it should be. He shouldn't be talking to any leader and need to talk in secret about anything.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I have a feeling that foreign leaders going forward are going to be very reluctant to talk to Donald Trump about anything at all off the record. I'm seeing Trump is meeting with Zelensky right now. It's interesting to see their body language. Trump has his hands in a prayer gesture, and Zelensky is like kind of slumped back and holding his hand. It's fascinating. Bill, spot on. Thanks for the call. Charles in Miami. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? Good afternoon.
Good, thank you.
I was listening to something you said over the break, and I got an epiphany, man. I love listening to the show. But before I say that, my thing is this: I get offended when the Republicans are saying, "Well, all this stuff is classified. You can't know entirely what the president is saying." Doesn't there come a time like right now where the public has the right to know? That's my question, and I'd like you to break that down later on if you can.
The way this should have played out, Charles, to protect national security. This is how desperate Donald Trump is. And frankly, the Republicans, that they're not calling him out on this, that he released a transcript or notes from a phone call with a foreign leader, president to president, which is just never done. Because you want foreign leaders to know that they can have these conversations, with some measure of privacy and confidentiality. So the way it should have been done is the notes, the memos should have gone to Congress as confidential information. They should have had somebody, I'm not sure if it would be Trump, certainly Bill Barr, since he's mentioned in here, and Rudy Giuliani, then come before Congress and answer questions about these conversations. But the conversation itself, I mean, this has to be incredibly embarrassing to the president of Ukraine, because he's just nakedly sucking up to Donald Trump. He's like, oh, you're so brilliant, and, I'm trying to drain the swamp here, too, and I stayed at Trump Tower when I came to New York. And I mean, he's just like, he's layering it on, right? It's like, cream cheese on toast. It's like, he's just layering it on. And he's got to be horribly embarrassed that that's now public, because he looks like a Trump toady. And of course, every leader in the world has figured out this is how you get on Trump's side, is you suck up to him.
Exactly.
And so, but now this is not good for the United States. Thanks a lot for the call, Charles. Carol in Germantown, New York. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I'm just really frustrated because it seems to me that our president always gets away with everything. Nobody confronts this man. And why this transcript is, we're not hearing the whole thing. Why is anybody surprised? Because he just seems to be able to manipulate people and smooze people so that he gets away with everything and always comes out smelling like a rose.
Yeah, I don't think he's smelling like a rose right now, Carol.
It's very frustrating. Let me just say.
Yeah.
I am so sick and tired of the man getting away with everything and not to be made accountable for the things that he does wrong.
And I have a feeling a day of reckoning is coming, but whether it's going to be the almost 20 women who have, on the record credibly accused him of assault, or whether it is, the apparently hundreds of business people who have sued him for refusing to pay them, or whether it's the various undocumented immigrants who have worked for him that he has now trashed, or whether it's his involvement with oligarchs in Russia and God only knows who else. And, according to Seth Abramson, apparently even, the Saudis back in 2016 election. I have a feeling that a reckoning is coming. I sure hope it is, Carol, because I share your concerns. Pete in Dunbury, Wisconsin. Hey, Pete, what's on your mind?
How you doing? I'm a 30-year retired military reservist, and a couple of commanding officers ago that I had spent a tour as a senior watch officer in the White House Situation Room. Mm-hmm. And he told me, without going into any specific detail, one of the more interesting responsibilities he had was monitoring all of the presidential phone calls and making detailed notes, because there were no audio recordings.
Right.
So there should be very detailed, specific notes that were made by
they're damn close to verbatim. Yeah. I mean, if they had three guys banging away as fast as they could, they probably captured every single word.
Yep. And that's how the system works, because there are no audio recordings.
Right. Yeah. Good one, Pete. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay. I'm with you. Lowell in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Lowell, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. So I wanted to ask if there's a way we can protect this whistleblower in the Trump administration, because the previous administration set a precedent for prosecuting whistleblowers. Chelsea Manning is currently being tortured in solitary confinement.
Again,
yes.
Yeah, and Reality Winner, and I mean, of all the lessons in this whistleblower thing, I think probably one of the most sad is that Ed Snowden was absolutely right.
Yes, and I wanted to bring up the fact that if Julian Assange was still free, this whistleblower might have been able to release that on WikiLeaks.
Yeah, that's a possibility, although WikiLeaks seems to have become, in fairly short order, more of an international political actor than simply a site that was releasing information. There are a couple of different groups that have claimed that they fed information to WikiLeaks that would have been embarrassing to the governments of Russia and some of the other more autocratic countries that are former Soviet states, and it never got released. So I'm not sure that Julian Assange was an honest broker.
Well, they validated items, and they released damning stuff on Putin as well. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is a fair attack
good
on
point.
them.
Yeah, it may not be. It may not be. And yeah, I think there's a hole now that WikiLeaks isn't there. The Washington Post and the New York Times both have websites where they say you can drop stuff anonymously, but I'm guessing for something at this level, people would be very, very wary of that. Thanks a lot, Lowell. Good to hear from you. Steve in Topanga, California. Hey, Steve, what's up?
I just wanted to my understanding, the Mueller report has not been given to the unredacted to the House Oversight Committees yet.
That's correct. And we do not have an unredacted transcript of this telephone conversation either, as far as I can tell.
Exactly. And Bill Barr has his footprints all over this new transcript. It's Bill Barr's playbook to stall, find ways to get government criminals off, and that's why he was hired.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He should be indicted and criminally prosecuted along with Trump.
Yeah.
People go to jail every day on circumstantial evidence.
John Mitchell went to prison. He was the Attorney General for Richard Nixon.
Yeah, and the whistleblower report is being Bill Barred just like the Mueller report.
I think so. I agree with you.
And last thing is, where's your bumper music come from?
Why?
Because I like it.
Oh, we bought it from a company that does bumper music for radio shows back 15 years ago or 10 years ago, something like that. So, it's been around for quite a while.
Great. I've been curious for a long time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the call, Steve. It's good to hear from you. Kevin in Tracy, California. Hey, Kevin, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. It's been a while since I called, but I just wanted to make a comment about the impeachment, and that is that you always say don't give in to despair, which is hard for me, but I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic. And I wanted to just follow up briefly on what Naomi Klein just mentioned a little while ago, that, it really needs to be emphasized that if Trump does get a second term, how much in danger we all are.
Yes. Yeah, her point, and she made it, and then we kind of moved on, but I think it was a really important point, is that Modi in India has just started his second term. And what did he do? He shut down Kashmir. I mean, it's he took a really, really aggressive step, and that he would have been reluctant to do in his first term. And I agree with Naomi Klein that this is Donald Trump's first term, and that if he's not stopped now from engaging in criminal behavior and exploiting people's fears and demonizing, otherwise marginalized people, he's gonna come back twice as strong, twice as filled with rage, twice as effective a proponent of hate in the United States, and that could be a pressure that this country can't withstand.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Meanwhile, the Trumpettes sent out some talking points. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. It's kind of a funny story. It's kind of sad, too. And welcome back. Bob in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. With reference to what Naomi Klein was talking about, and with reference to Greta and her comments, I think we're leaving out an important aspect of what would make the world better and end the cannabis prohibition worldwide.
I'm with you, Bob. I'm with you.
That entirely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that
and it never gets discussed at any length so that people understand why that is an important feature of any new Green Deal. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, legalizing cannabis would be an important part of a Green New Deal because it's one of the most efficient converters of solar energy into cellulose and into oils on the earth. Number one, far more efficient than trees, and number two, because the war on cannabis has been used to just damage all kinds of people. Thanks a lot, Bob. Good to hear from you, Bob in St. Clair Shores, Michigan. Wow, long time since I've been there. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hi, I'm just calling to find out if you think this might be the second time that Donald Trump made a quid pro quo deal with a foreign country to get a political favor. Back when he made a deal with Qatar to get them to give Jared Kushner a loan, didn't he put pressure on them economically in order to change their mind about giving Jared Kushner the loan?
Yes, he supported the Saudi blockade of Qatar, which weirdly is, where we've got I think it's the 6th Fleet is stationed out of there. We've got a huge military base there. It's essential to our operations in the Gulf. And yet we supported the Saudis in shutting down, imports into Qatar and basically blockading them until they gave the money to Jared Kushner. Yeah. And by the way, that would make this the third quid pro quo. The first one was when he said, Russia, if you're listening, find Hillary's emails, and I'm sure that you'll be rewarded. And sure enough,
Okay, my question is it possible to get transcripts of his phone calls with Qatar?
Oh, that would be an interesting one. It wouldn't, I doubt it. I doubt it. This is something that Congress, if they're not investigating right now, they certainly should be. And frankly, I think the FBI should be investigating, using a foreign government to get $1 billion for your son-in-law. I mean, basically extorting a foreign government, threatening a foreign government to get $1 billion for your son-in-law so that he could get bailed out of his bad real estate deal at 666 Fifth Avenue. It's bizarre. But, whether they're...
I'm just pointing out that there's a pattern to the way Donald Trump operates with his dealings with foreign governments.
Yeah, well, everything's transactional. I mean, he has talked about how he views everything as transactional in the past. He's talked about how everything is a deal, right, in quotes. And I think he doesn't, therefore, understand government or governance or any of these very, very real issues. And Bob, you raised an excellent point. This is how he operates, and it's sad. I mean, it's very unfortunate for our country. Bottom line. We'll be back. I'll be picking up more of your phone calls in just a moment. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Here on the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. Stick around. Be right back. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. Back. Boy, a lot going on. I think the most interesting part of all of this, and we're really going to see the rubber hit the road tomorrow when the House of Representatives, when the House Intel Committee is questioning in public, and then followed by the Senate Intel Committee questioning in private, the Senate, of course, being run by Republicans. Donald Trump's national security advisor. This is going to get, who is the director, the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, not the role not the National Security Advisor, but yeah, you get it. And this is the guy who is saying, the whistleblower complaint, I don't think it's so important that I have to share that with Congress, even though the guy who's basically in charge of vetting it, the Inspector General for the intelligence community, has said, oh boy, this is a big deal. It is urgent. It is timely. It's relevant. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Steve in Portland. Hey, Steve. Thanks for listening to X-Ray FM. What's up?
Hey, Tom. I'm really glad to talk to you. I've been listening to years, but I'll get to it. Wouldn't you think that any world leader that would take a phone call with Donald Trump would be recording it just because he's so dishonest, and it seems like no matter what he says, you can't believe? I would think any world leader would be.
I would assume that.
Trying to record that.
I would assume that. There may be a few countries where they don't, where they do it the way we do, probably Western democracies, but I would think,
And also, he it's well known that he uses his personal cell phone for a lot of this stuff, probably too.
Yeah, and that the Chinese were running stingrays outside the White House that were, doing the man-in-the-middle attack, basically sucking down data out of people's cell phones, presumably including Donald Trump's. So,
but I guess if that's the case, I would think that somebody would have brought some recordings to light already with all the stuff that's gone on over the last 3 years.
Yeah,
seems like somebody would have pulled something out. But
it's all very bizarre.
I think he's being recording.
Yep. Steve, thanks for the call. Bob in Chicago. Hey, Bob. Thanks for listening to WCPT. What's up?
Hi, Tom. I want to remind everybody that during the 2015 primaries, Donald Trump nicknamed 6 senators with names that earmark them as less than. And I want people to probably call those senators and remind them that Donald Trump has never been their friend, will never be their friend, and will be happy to rename them again should they give them an opportunity to run for office again in 2020.
Right. That's a good one. And little Marco, et cetera.
Right. Lion Ted.
Right. Yeah, Lion Ted. Yep.
Mitt Romney. There are 6, I believe it's 6 Republican senators in the Senate right now.
Right.
Who were directly affected by
direct recipients of Trump's trash talking. Right. Yeah, it's a good one. Bob, excuse me, Bob, thank you for the call. Just by the way, since Bob is in Chicago, it reminds me, on October 3rd, which is a week away, 2 weeks away, a week away, next week, I'll be in Chicago at 6 p.m. at Smart 265 in Carroll Stream doing a book signing and giving a talk on my new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. You can get tickets and more information at WCPT820.com. It is, I'm pretty sure it's free, but I'm also guessing that they want to know who's coming. Barbara in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Barbara, what's on your mind today?
Hi, quickly. On CNN last night, a former Ukrainian ambassador was being interviewed, and he didn't speak English. It was translated, and it was like a British version of CNN. Mm-hmm. And he said the fiasco in the Ukraine benefits Russia, that's their biggest concern. They won't be able to, if they don't get the funding, they're being blackmailed, and it's creating chaos.
Well, this was one of the original questions was did Donald Trump withhold this funding from Ukraine because he wanted them to trash Joe Biden and, make up something that would look bad for the vice president, or was he doing it because he had been told to do it by President Putin or by somebody, one of the autocrats or oligarchs in the region?
Exactly. I mean, that was the ambassador's biggest concern. And you have to wake, you have to be doing your dishes at 3 a.m. like I do.
To catch those things.
To catch it. It's like you don't catch that stuff. Yeah. They don't put it out there. And nobody, tells the truth when you're, in prime time.
Yeah, I get it. Barbara, thanks so much for the call. It's great to hear from you, and thank you for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Tomorrow, it's really going to hit the fan. With the Director of National Intelligence, Mr. McGuire, as I recall, testifying before the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Intelligence. This is going to get fascinating, and it's getting very, very real. And, I never got to the talking points. The Trump administration sent out the talking points that they're sending to the people who are going on Fox News by accident to all the Democrats in the House of Representatives. They're freaking out. They're begging for them back. Anyhow, don't forget, democracy requires you. Tag your it. We'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.